Rojas is a U.S. Army veteran and seasoned IT leader who has built a career. Pedro Rojas is a U.S. Army veteran and seasoned IT leader who has built a career at the intersection of technology, security, and project management. Over more than a decade in the military, he's held roles ranging from IT supervisor to ComSec manager, leading teams in high stakes environments, and overseeing mission critical communication and security systems. Today, Pedro serves as a technical project manager at Meta Data Centers, where he drives large scale infrastructure and security projects across global teams. With deep expertise in risk management, cross functional leadership, and physical IT and security design, he's a prime example of how veterans can transition into cutting edge technology careers. Welcome, Pedro. I hope I managed to get it all there for you.
Yeah, it's the first time I've heard it all the way, so it sounded great the first time.
Good,
There you
because
go.
I don't want to have to repeat that, brother.
No, you're good. Trust me.
Hey, so I'll start off easy. Can you share a bit about your military background and what first drove you towards a career in IT and technology?
Yeah, so average story. I joined the Army at 17 years old, right out of high school. Recruiter basically took me in, took an ASVAB, and they're like, "Hey, you scored pretty decent. There's some IT stuff. I don't know if you want to do it or not." I didn't know anything about technology at the time, so yeah, sure, why not? It comes with a clearance. Let's do it. So, shipped off to Fort Gordon and, did my AIT there, became a 25 Bravo, and then quickly deployed a year after graduating. So, spent a lot of time in teams working in different ComSec scenarios and, establishing network back in front end. For those who are looking in technology roles, you would understand like OSP and ISP. So, everything outside of the building, everything inside of the building. And I did that for a while. I actually transitioned into the Army Reserves shortly after and started, kind of doing my weekend a month, maintaining my certifications, let the military pay for my continuing education, which was a great avenue. And then COVID happened, right? So at the time, I was already a civilian and I was furloughed during COVID and I was still a reservist. An opportunity came where I was allowed to come back on active duty for about 2 to 3 years, to kind of keep the ball rolling, help everybody out. But eventually that well dried up and I had to come back. And I was jobless for that for about 2 months. And, I kind of did what everybody did. They freaked out, started applying for a lot of jobs and building your resume. But overall, I had a lot of support from not only like my teammates on the military side, but also just like friends I've made over the years. I'm still currently serving as an Army reservist now, so that's kind of great. I like to, continue serving and helping others.
Yeah, so what was your biggest challenge in that job hunt after, I'm guessing you're probably on AGR orders or AT or something like that?
Yeah, so I was on Title 10, AG,
Oh, 10, yeah.
yeah, Title 10 orders. The biggest struggle afterwards was where do I start, right? It was coming off of COVID a little bit. Everybody's still kind of remote. Where do I kind of fit in? I was doing a pretty high level G6 role at the time when I was on order. So, I had a big purview. So I immediately went into GS jobs and things like that and built my resume. I quickly saw some guidance in a team just like this one. You have a whole bunch of group of veterans and experienced people who have transitioned out and I was able to kind of get information on how to properly build my resume, how to properly engage companies and things like that. How do I translate what I did in the military to a civilian who probably doesn't understand what the verbiage is?
Yeah, that's exactly the next question I was going to ask you is, I mean, how during your transition, how'd you, translate that civilian language, especially over to Meta, which is about as far from the military as most people could imagine.
Yeah, so surprisingly, just to touch on that, there is a huge veteran community within Meta. It's great. They're a great group of people. A lot of Navy guys where I work at, so a little different, but it's a little mix here. First thing I had to do, and my greatest, advice, build a master resume. Have one resume that shows everything you've done in your career, right? And that's going to be like your foundational resume, put it that way. And then as I started looking for roles, I started looking, okay, what are the job requirements and how does that transition over? At the time, AI wasn't a really big thing. So I did it the old-fashioned way. I went line by line. How can I transition this word into me, on the other side, on the civilian side? And now you can just copy and paste into AI and it'll do it for you. But that was my biggest issue at the time. How can I translate it? I just went, job by job, line by line, summarize it, and present it the best way possible to meet the job descriptions I was going for.
Yeah, it makes sense. So, I mean, do you have any early setbacks or lessons you kind of learned during that transition that helped shape where you are now?
Yeah, so I think it's important to know that really quickly, you're not gonna get a lot of interviews, right? It's a little bit different. I quickly applied, I think in a 2 month period, maybe over 300 jobs. Out of those 300 jobs, I probably only got callbacks for about 10 or 12, right? And Meta was not one of them, to be clear.
Mhm.
That one came a little bit later on. So it just takes time, being persistent, making sure you're presenting yourself in the right way. You're hitting those key notes, those visuals, those recruiters are looking for.
Was there anything in particular that your hiring manager or recruiter said, "Hey, this is why we looked at you"? Was there
Oh,
something in there?
right off the bat, problem solving skills, right? If you're looking for any kind of program manager, project manager role, leadership, problem solving, communication. If you're able to handle those, you're pretty much not a shoo-in, but you understand the basis of what they're looking for. A lot of teams now don't communicate as well, which includes a lot of problems in the projects. But, as an NCO or anybody that was in the military, they have prior leadership experience leading troops or leading, individuals. You learn how to kind of communicate with those different individuals, have a common set ground, and then move forward. So that was one skill that we're really looking for.
Yeah, that's good stuff.
Yeah.
Looking back, what resources, mentors, or programs do you feel like was most valuable in making that transition out of the Army and into a place like Meta?
People. Your relationships that you make everywhere in the military, even like when I was, active duty, working with the LARS or like the contractors, having those people in your back pocket, those GS employees that work inside the building, those were really valuable contacts down the road to kind of help you guide yourself, especially if you are looking for the GS role. There's a certain structure to go that route. But, it's people 100%. They're going to guide you, they're going to open doors. And even here, now that I'm, at Meta, I still communicate with like other reservists, other veterans, and we still find opportunities for other folks. So it's very important.
Yeah, I don't disagree. So what was the hardest part of transitioning from military IT leadership to civilian IT leadership? I mean, you're gonna
Yeah.
have very different personalities with similar work.
Yeah, when you're leading on as a green suitor, how we say it, you don't really get to give direction directly at all times on the civilian side. A lot of it's going to be, going through the proper channels of communication, making sure you're compliant with whatever standards the company you work for has. On the military side, you can be a little bit more direct, right? You can say, hey, 05, you're going to be here. This is what we're going to do. Or, hey, we're not going home until it's done. Those kind of things. That doesn't really transition very well over. So you have to adapt to the current environment where you're at for sure. So just knowing that you're part of a team, no matter where you're at, and there's different people and individuals in those roles that kind of make those decisions. And as long as you have proper lines of communication, you're going to be able to affect business goals effectively going forward.
So speaking more in that communication, we all know we have a very colorful vernacular on the military side of things, and that's definitely one of the things you have to adjust. But what else did you find you had to adjust when you were communicating with your civilian counterparts that was like, oh crap, I have to do this, the struggle.
All the updates. That was one thing, right? So communication updates across the board. Usually when you're given an assignment or a mission on the green side, you execute, complete the mission, AR after, move forward, right? Here you kind of have to update as you go. So as you're adjusting, the lines left and right, you have to keep all the other trades or all the other pillars within your company informed as well. So that was just something you had to get used to kind of moving forward because everybody needs to be aware because just because you make a decision that you may think that doesn't impact the business goals and needs, it does impact another pillar, another stakeholder, so you have to keep those in mind.
It's pretty interesting. Yeah, I mean, you think about it because they move a lot faster than the military in some ways, and then a lot slower in others. Is that your experience?
Yeah, like it barely. There's a common saying, right? Like ask for forgiveness later on the military side, get the mission done. And yeah, that doesn't really apply a lot on the civilian side. So there's a proper way of doing it. And in the military, we're fast, right? Like we like to get things quickly, even though we feel like some things move slow. We are really quick as an organization. And you learn to accept that, going slow is okay, is acceptable because you want to make sure, proper like procedures are met throughout the process.
It's funny that the first guy who ever said that phrase to me, it's better to ask forgiveness or beg forgiveness than ask permission, was actually my commander. And saying, hey, doing the recruiting job, he's like, hey, sometimes you just got to do it and then just beg forgiveness later, but obviously that's not going to fly on the civilian side, right?
No, no. Yeah, keeping proper leadership informed and, hitting all your P's and Q's all the way across. It's very important.
Yeah, because I'm sure everything's recorded too. So, I mean, were there civilian certs or training programs that, you looked at and go, oh crap, that was the one that really got me in the door?
I was very blessed to have some really good leadership in the military that taught me early on about certifications and continuing education. I fully took advantage of every certification I was able to get through the military for the IT side. So, for example, like your CompTIA certifications, or if you're, pursuing a PMP or an ICA Square certification, let them pay for it. Let them, send you to the training, get the certification. And my role, I decided to stay in the reserve so that way they pay for my CEUs and move forward and, maintain my certifications. And I was blessed with that. So that's carried on very well, and it held a lot of value when it came to interviews and job experience. Because not only did I have the experience, I also had the certifications that, justified my roles, what I was doing on the military side.
I'm guessing you're still able to take advantage of that in the Army Reserve side too, right? Let
Yes,
them pay for some of the stuff.
100%. There's still a lot of benefits on Army Reserve that pays for your CEUs, different programs for sure. So yeah, I keep pursuing them, and I try to do about two certs a year. It does get costly, so just make sure you're choosing the right ones correctly because there is fees, to maintain certifications and so on and so forth.
Yeah, but I imagine the fees probably aren't as bad as the initial investment, right?
Oh, 100%. One battle assembly will cover pretty much all your fees for the whole year. So
Oh, yeah. Hey, I'll show up for a weekend for that. Thank you, because that adds
yeah.
to your civilian value a lot.
It does. And then the connections, right? I can't tell you how many times, and I don't know if there's any reservists or National Guardsmen on this call, but I can't tell you how many times I meet a E3 and E4, and they're just lower enlisted, and they turn out to be some six-figure income person at some company, and they're just there because they want good TRICARE insurance and they want
Yeah.
to save a couple bucks. So, yeah, you never know who you meet at battle assembly that can support you on the other side.
I can't tell you how many examples of that. I mean, I
Yeah,
I worked with, guys who are aircraft mechanics on the weekend, and then they were actually aerospace engineers during the week, or,
yeah,
lieutenant of the police force, and the connections you make there are ludicrously awesome.
yeah.
And speaking of networking, I mean, did other veterans play a role in your transition in that transition, or was it civilian contacts?
I did contact a lot of different reservists at the time, right? Because a lot of them transitioned from AGR down to TPU, so they came off their orders, they refried it, and they had to find jobs too. So I kind of picked their brain because it was a different era. Post COVID was very different.
Can you plug in
Everybody,
the laptop charger?
Hey, whoever just
The
said
charger
plug
is
in
back there. I
backup
think it's in
charger's
that
got a hot
thing.
mic and apparently needs to charge their laptop. Go ahead.
yeah, I think they heard you. But yeah, post COVID was kind of weird, right, for everybody. So it was a unique situation. It wasn't as easy as just doing an in-person interview, right? A lot of it was VC. Well, all of them were technically VC at that point. And some of them required you to do some share screen work that you had to get comfortable with that you probably weren't before. And it was just a different process. But I think being able to navigate exactly where my roles can transition and help others was very useful at the time. And I wanted to pursue different roles where I wanted to be challenged because that's one big thing that, I always want to grow and continue to grow. So surrounding yourself around people that, I like to say they're smarter than me in some way, really helped me out because it challenged me to think at a different level that I didn't know I was able to prior. So a lot of times when I talk to a lot of veterans, they start a new job, they immediately get imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
They feel like, hey, I got it. I got it maybe because I'm a veteran or I got it because I know a person. But now I feel kind of weird because it has a lot of responsibility. Well, I'm pretty sure that person's been in harder situations and harder decisions. So take it, move forward, learn, and succeed and keep on and hand it forward. So that's my advice on that part.
I know the imposter syndrome hit me the first 6 months pretty hard. I mean, I was all messed up, and I couldn't figure out why until I reached out to a buddy, a guy I recruited who's in the civilian world, for years, and he just laughed. He's like, "I know exactly what you got." I mean, did you have to deal with that too?
Oh, 100%. Immediately when I showed up, you're just plugged into the program, right? So you're expected to keep everything flowing and moving as normal. Uh, what helped me is I stuck to my foundational knowledge. What am I good at? I know how to manage people. I can manage time. I can manage milestones, expectations. If there's a plan, I can set it and then delegate risk as needed. So as I maintain my foundational knowledge, I carried that forward with every task I was given, and I was really rewarded throughout the whole process. So just kind of remember what are your strengths and know your weaknesses. That way you can learn from them and kind of build on those.
So, I mean, with that, did your time as a senior manager IT ops on the Army side, prepare you for private sector leadership, or do you feel like there was things that hindered you?
No, I think it really helped me a lot because I was able to simplify a lot of the issues. I think in the military, we find ways to find a simple solution to a complicated problem very well. And if that's due through proper problem solving or just surrounding yourself with good people, I think that's one thing we excel in. And I carried that same knowledge over, and it worked great. And it was actually refreshing to a lot of the civilians I work with because they weren't used to that kind of mindset. And it kind of helped kind of give those boundaries and those dividers up a lot properly and give ease of mind to those leaders that needed it. So after a while, they're confident. They'll give you those more complicated tasks and issues. And as long as you're executing properly, you're fine. But if you do, for whatever reason, have an issue, or you made a bad decision, just learn from it. It's not as severe as you may think it is.
Do you feel like that extra structure made the team more efficient, or did you have some pushback here and there, or do you think it was pretty smooth?
I think crossing over to any civilian job, you're going to have pushback with your current mindset. And you should welcome that feedback. Any kind of feedback you can get, positive or negative, constructive, take it. You want to hone it in and kind of see, what is the expectation? How can you deliver? If you're, trying to influence a different stakeholder or a different pillar within your company, make sure understand their side of it as well too. So once I was able to incorporate what are their business needs and goals and how do they operate or their scope of work, and I can incorporate it into mine, I got buy-in immediately with all the pillars. So the pushback immediately stopped. And that's common. I hear that with all, a lot of transitioning veterans trying to come in. They get a lot of pushback.
Yeah, and it's funny. Somebody came on the other day, a fellow from Zoom Info, and he said that, hey, when you hire one veteran, you usually don't see a big productivity increase, but when you hire two, you usually see about a 3% productivity increase. I mean, do you feel like that, having those other veterans around kind of starts creating that little bit of a different feel around the place?
Oh, 100%. I think it creates a more welcoming work environment for sure. Um, we have a different mindset when it comes to executing. It's the get it done mentality, right? What's the problem? Let's get it done and move forward. And being able to have that within different pillars, kind of helps out to kind of execute what your goals are. But I think it definitely benefits the work environment. I don't think veterans should feel like they're, a in the way or stopping work progress or in the work environment at all.
Awesome. How do you balance kind of the technical side of project management with people leadership? Because obviously, get stuff done, and okay, we got to be a little sensitive on the people side,
Yeah.
especially come from the military mindset where you just give them the quick knife hand and get to work.
Yeah, I can speak to this from my current role, right? So as a technical project manager, I am managing the project. I'm not the tech in the field anymore with my tools and, installing equipment. Specifically for like hyperscale data centers, like I cover all low voltage and security access control pathways for hyperscale data centers. So I have a pretty good background in the field from the military side, installing devices, running cable, installing the infrastructure. Um, I feel like it's important to keep yourself relevant on what the industry standard is and understand how it, kind of works with your project, but also understanding the people that are in the field kind of doing the work themselves. You have to know the pain points and the struggles that they might experience. And your role as a project manager is to think ahead. So in the military, right, we do our 30, 60, 90, we think ahead, plan forward, things like that. We're kind of adopting the same concept over on the civilian side. And you learn a lot of that if you decide to go for like your PMP or you like your yellow belt, green belt, black belt, your Six Sigma stuff. You learn these project manager skills on how to properly coordinate within the field and your project itself, because it does take a well balance of both. I think giving proper expectations and execution of the project to the field, and as long as they understand what the end goal is and at what level they're able to contribute, you're perfectly fine moving forward.
So, I mean, do you have like certain strategies used to align technical execution with business goals? Because sometimes those two don't meet.
Oh, all the time, right? I don't think they ever meet at any company, right? Yeah, so I think it just comes into collaborating with other stakeholders and pillars. Because when it comes to the business side of the house, like the business goals and expectations at any company, there's different people that manage those areas and scopes of work. And understanding how your role plays a part in the bigger picture, because that's what it really is. So once you understand like how much does your scope of work impact the business goals and needs, then you're going to have to kind of figure out, okay, what can hinder? What are my plans here in case A, B, and C happens? And as long as you're properly prepared, which I don't think you're ever going to be fully prepared for all situations, but have a plan and and share it, right? As long as you can execute from that plan, you're perfectly fine moving forward.
Yeah, I mean, have a plan for the plan and the backup plan for that.
Yeah. Even if you
We
never use them, just have them. You never know.
prefer not to use them usually, just like in the military side of things. Like, hey, go take that place, but here's three other options in case this doesn't work out. Obviously the first one's the ideal. So, I mean, you work with global teams in Meta. How
Yeah.
do you feel like your military experience with multicultural, all the different cultures you've dealt with and distributed teams help you get prepare for that? Do you feel like you're better than others because you've done the military thing? You've worked with people with all over the world.
I wouldn't say I feel like I'm better than others. I just feel like the military quickly showed you how to communicate and, cohabitate with different people all over the world, as we all know. Meta is one of those companies that, it's very diverse. They hire from everywhere, and it's great to talk to them every day and learn from their experiences. Being that comfortable right on was great. But I honestly feel like my military experience with diversity, I was able to fit right in and keep everything going because I think that culture was already adopted here when I got here. So there is companies out there where this is the normal, just like the military, right? You're going to have people from different countries, speak different languages, different backgrounds, and they're so diverse. And it's great when you find a company that actually, adopts the same culture. So you're able to plug in and go.
I mean, you got people from India to Indiana working there, so
Yeah.
two different sides of the planet and everything else in between on both sides. So it makes sense. Same thing with us. And even outside of the United States, we had people come from different countries,
Yeah.
and joining under a green card or out of Guam or whatever.
Mhm.
Demario, go ahead.
Hey, how you doing, Pedro? Thank you for taking the time out to speak to us. I did have a question about Meta. So Meta being this large company as it is, I'm always interested in seeing how the hiring process works, but also more importantly, how does Meta go about figuring out what swim lane a particular person gets into as far as their personality traits and the psychological portion of the hiring process?
Oh man, that's an awesome question. Um, Let me ask you this. Have you ever applied at a big tech company before?
Yes, I have. I'm actually hired on already through SCCI.
Okay,
They worked through the military doing as a senior operator, a computer
okay,
operator.
perfect. One thing you'll quickly notice once you start applying for, and I don't know if it was like this for you at your role, they usually have multiple interviews. Meta does 5 interviews for every role typically. So they cover different aspects. Behavioral is one of them, problem solving, different things that, go with that role. So if your role is expected to, coordinate with different stakeholders and pillars, that's part of your interview process. And there is also like a technical interview or domain expertise. So I think a lot of these companies, and then not just Meta, but their hiring process is specific to the role and what you will be doing and what you'll be exposed to, and to see if you're the best fit for the role. I know for myself, I'm under AMAS solution. So there's a process where you can come on as a contingent worker as well. And that's just through a third party vendor system, which there's tons of them out there. They all hired through and they contract in. And if that's your way in, that's your way in. So kind of always be open to different positions and roles. But like to answer your original question, there is a process in place to make sure you're the best fit for the role. And I feel like it's extremely fair in the process moving forward.
Thank you. And I did have a follow-up question about AI and how much does AI play a role in that as well?
Gotcha. So I can clearly say I don't specifically work in the AI side of Meta. I work more on the back side of it where the OSP, ISP cabling goes through and the low voltage on the data centers. So I wouldn't have much input on the AI side, But I know Meta's doing amazing things with AI, and they're posting about it publicly almost every day now. So that'll be your best source from a Meta standpoint.
All right. Thank you so much, man, for your time again. Thank
Hey,
you.
no problem. Thank you for asking for your question.
That was a great question, man. What's your approach to risk management on large IT teams? I mean, is it a little bit more on the risky side, a little bit more on the conservative side?
On speaking from a military standpoint, I feel like there's risk in every decision we make, whether it be minuscule or, it can be really big and impactful. So as a leader, you need to understand your left and rights and where's your compromise at. Typically, you want to find that midpoint where you meet the objective with the lowest amount of risk. That's what everybody wants to do, right? But there is times where you have to take a risk. You're given the data and you move forward. My best advice is be data driven. Sometimes as leaders, especially coming from the military side, we're very emotionally driven because we care. We care about our people, we care about our projects, and how we present ourselves. But sometimes, keeping it black and white, use data to drive your decision making will usually lead you to the correct answer most of the time. So that's usually what I recommend. Make sure you have all the information you need to make a proper educated decision, and I would ensure the data does back up the decision.
So, what do you consider makes up a high performance team?
For one, everybody buys in, right? There has to be a common ground where everybody's buying into the vision, the business goals and needs, and moving forward from there. So I think that's very important from that part. And then understanding the people in your team, know who they are. What do they do? How do they contribute? What are their strengths and their weaknesses? And you're only going to do that by communicating, by working with them, talking to them. Know your people. It's very important. And also, you need to know your left and rights. When it comes to decision making, what are your boundaries? How can everybody move forward towards a goal? Because at the end of the day, if you're leading this team, you're representing them and they're representing you. So it's a give and take situation.
Got it. Brian, go ahead, sir.
Hey, Pedro, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you
Yep.
just fine, Brian. Go ahead.
Hey, thanks for coming out, Pedro. My name's Brian Smith. I am looking at doing something in project management and whatnot.
Okay.
Um, and after researching what project management actually is, come to find out, I've done a lot of that throughout my career in the military. One of the weaknesses I seem to have, though, is selling it. Right?
Okay.
So selling it to the bosses. If you remember, what we were taught years and years ago about personality traits and whatnot, I apparently am very green. So I am, very data oriented. I look at projects, I look at, how to fix them and look at how to solve them, and I can have all the data, and it's beneficial for everyone. My problem is the sell, is getting those that matter, the stakeholders, on board and getting them to sell it. Have you faced that issue? Um, and if so, like, do you have any advice as to how to overcome that, become a
Yeah.
better salesman?
Yeah. So I came across this early on in my career. I was really quick to resolve the problem, put a plan in place, and
Okay.
get through there.
No, I'm
And
okay.
I don't know if somebody has a hot mic there,
I have
but
two different energy drinks that one of them
Two
still
different
drinking.
energy drinks. We can hear you, dude. Go ahead, Pedro.
yeah. So back to what I was saying, yeah, early on that was an issue, right? I was quick to give you the answer. Here's a problem, boom, I know the answer. There you go. But a lot of the times the people you're presenting this to, whether it be like your leadership, your stakeholders, upper echelon, they don't really like see the problem, right? They want to know what's the end result. So my advice is when you present your project and your processes, give what is the end result going to be? How is this going to better the business goals and needs? You have to close the loop. I feel like I always assumed they knew exactly what I was talking about and they knew what the end result was going to be. But sometimes you have to present that. Now, when it comes to presenting data too as well and solutions, make sure you're using the right platform. We're quick to use, PowerPoint, Excel, things like that in the military, but those days are a little bit different now on the civilian side. Use your Power BI tools, things like that. Learn different presentation formats that can probably display the data in your message a lot better. So educate yourself on what's out there new with software, or what does your company use? That was another one. One thing that I had a hard time in the military, we're M365. We use Teams every day, and when I transitioned, we were using Google. So Google Docs, Google Excel, things like that. So I had to kind of learn back and forth how to use different platforms to present my data accordingly. So that's my big advice. Close the loop, show them how this not only benefits your project, but from a high level, the business goals and needs.
Sweet. Thanks, Pedro.
Yeah.
Hey, so I mean, do you still feel your military identity influences the way you still work today? Have you passed some of that down, or is it just never going away?
It's never going away. There's a few guys that I work with from the contractor side, different GCs that built these data centers. And you can quickly spot these, these gentlemen over the age of 60 walking around. They just carry themselves very differently. And it's just that older military mindset. And I think it's very respected in the field, and they see that and they listen. That's one big thing, that they do care and listen where you're coming from and what your input is. So own it, respect it, build from it, teach it, however you want to look at it. But I think it's always a win.
I agree. How do you approach mentoring other veterans interested in this kind of work? Is there anything in particular you start off with?
What are their struggles? I think we can all say our experience in the military is vastly different. We all did different jobs, different branches, different roles. Your struggle may not be their struggle. I always want to hear them first. What's your problem? What do you feel like you're struggling with? And what do you feel you're great at? Let's look at the ups too. It's not always down, and kind of, go from there. You'll be surprised how much veterans know. There is so much information out there, and sometimes it's hard to understand it all. It really is. But I think once you understand the root of what your goal is and what's hindering your goals, then you can kind of start picking at it, accomplishing things, moving forward, and then get to a position where you're satisfied. For myself, I'm always striving for the next role or the next position or the more responsibility, because I feel like I haven't even reached near my cap. And I didn't know what my ceiling was when I came on board. On the military side, I kind of felt like I knew like what my cap was, and some of that is distinguished by rank or position, things like that as you move forward. And then, the next level opens. Here, it's almost endless. Like you're able to, sky's the limit, which is great. And it really helps you out.
Yeah, you don't have to go to war college to become a colonel on the civilian side.
No, you don't.
It's funny you said something there, especially like that always drove me nuts. I shouldn't say drove me nuts when I was in the military. It was after how many jobs we have in the military and the things that we didn't know. Like, the project manager thing was brought up. I had no idea what project manager was until I was out for like a year and change. I realized, holy cow, I did project and program management because the military doesn't call it that. It's just here's your task.
Yeah.
Have you seen any other counterparts in the civilian world where you're like, man, you guys got to know this?
Oh, logistics, 100%. If you've ever been an NCO or an officer, you've managed property or signed a hand receipt at one time or another in your military career, and being able to, manage your inventory, move it from one place to another, handle funding, things like that. If you ever PCS, right, you've had to handle funds, receipts, things like that, right? So I think logistics is a huge opportunity for anybody, doesn't matter your rank or your MOS in the military, that can transition over just by taking a few courses or understanding, what are the business goals and needs of that company. Um, we have our logistics team is pretty heavy with veterans here. So, it's great that they're showcasing like their skills that they learned. And this is not the end. A lot of people that, transition over, this is what they're learning now, and this is the next step to their next job or their next career. So I think logistics is a big open avenue. Now, when it comes to like IT specific, IT has changed so much in the last 20 years. And I think anybody on this call that, has worked in the IT or signal or anything on the military side can agree to that. Now with cyber and, data centers building up, IT is a lot more than just help desk or working on a computer. So figure out if you want to pursue IT or cyber, what's your niche? Find a niche that you feel you can definitely support, learn from, and develop, and follow that. Don't try to be broad, because when you're broad, you're never going to really fit in exactly where you want to go. Yeah, you might understand the lingo, but you're not going to be really thriving in that position. And you may not be the happiest in that position either.
I especially agree with the logistics side of things. I mean, for years we all had to fit, 10 pounds of crap in a 5 pound bag and then get it someplace on a different part of the planet. At least almost most of us did, especially over Guat. It's one of those things you just don't think about until after you're out. You realize like, hey, I had to deal with this logistics train from, getting the call to showing up and getting all the stuff there and everything supported. So I like the way you put that because it's excellent. So, what advice would you give to service members with IT backgrounds who want to break into top tech companies? Places like you're at, the
Yeah.
Meta,
I think your certifications are your baseline, right? Take advantage of the education that's given to you while you're in uniform, for sure. Knocking out like your CompTIA certifications, your Sec Plus, Net Plus, your CCNA. That's going to be a great foundation there. And then I would always recommend any veteran while you're in, get a project manager certification, whether it be through PMI or through Six Sigma. Like, go ahead and knock that out because you do have the experience and you have been in those roles. And now you just need a sheet of paper that's saying you do understand that you are competent and you can execute. So that's my biggest recommendation. And you'll be surprised where that carries you after. And it will benefit you for sure.
Are there any aspects of the military IT operations do you think the private sector could learn from, things that we see uniquely that maybe they don't see as much?
That's tough, right? It just depends. I think in the military side, it depends on what command you're in, right? You might be in a command where you focus a lot on SIPRNet, right? So you're working in SCIFs and you have to have like a TS SEI to get in, or, you have to have a different badge. I think that role it carries over very well to like three-letter agencies and things like that when it comes to the IT side. When it comes to like standing up a network, I think that translates great to construction or new buildings. Because how many times have you gone to the field and, you see the IT guys, they're setting up all the antennas and the cables and running everything. Well, that's what construction is. You're building the infrastructure. You're doing OSP and ISP cabling right there. So you'd be surprised, what does carry over, and some of it just clicks. Like, oh, I've done this plenty of times. Earlier when we were talking about logistics, and you brought up a good point. How many times, well, I know when I've deployed, how to coordinate all my gear, getting to a port, making sure it goes through customs, goes on the other side of the port, it's there on time, picking it up, going through a checklist. Like that's a process, and that's not common knowledge. You had to educate yourself, or you attended a course that taught you how to do it. And those skills do carry over. So I think being able to learn a new skill or a new scope of work quickly, it's a trait that it's very beneficial as a project manager or a program manager.
Was there anything in particular that drew you to Meta, or was it just, one of the ones that you had applied to and of the hundreds that, how'd you get there?
Yeah, so shortly November of 2023, it's when I came off ADOS orders. And luckily, I had enough leave to carry me, I think, for a month. So I was able to get at least two more paychecks after I got out, to kind of help. And I knew it was the worst time because it was holiday season and there's hiring freezes at major companies, right? So usually you can't even get hired on until after January. I was really blessed. So I'm under AMAS Solutions. So they reached out to me for a role, which surprisingly, that I applied for in August, and I never heard anything back. It was quiet, crickets. I thought, oh, it's just one of those 300 jobs I applied for, and I just didn't hear anything back. And they reached out to me like, hey, you're pretty close to Temple, Texas. There's a role there. We got to do some quick interviews for it, but are you able to fill it? And quickly within a week, I was able to get a VC in. And I think what helped me the most is being comfortable in a situation to present myself to the other side and being able to show my value quickly and how I can plug in and work and show that history. And that's kind of how I got branched in very well into Meta. So that was a big benefit there.
Did you know anybody there that you were networked before then?
Yeah, so the head of logistics at the site, he's currently an 04 on the reserve side. He's up in Port Seal. But yeah, I knew him from prior reserve units. Usually when you go to drill, right, there's like 5 or 6 units in the building. So you eventually like see a lot of people. And I've been in now, shoot, I just hit 14 years of federal service in June. So I've been around for a little bit on the reserve side. So I was able to communicate and coordinate with some of those folks. And you'd be surprised, for sure. Hey, Justin, I see you have a question. Go ahead.
Definitely picked up on the camera. I just moving my hands around. No question. Sorry about that.
Oh, okay. No, you're good. Sorry.
So, I mean, how do you, is there anything you do in particular to sharpen your technical leadership skills, and especially such a fast moving industry? Because there's always new stuff coming out and you got to probably figure out which is useful to you and which is fluff.
Yeah. So I'm always looking at continuing education, right? So for one, the main thing I do, right? I look at others around me. We have great leaders all around us, and you're able to acknowledge that. So one thing that you can quickly tell if you're a leader or if you've ever been in a leadership role, you can see another great leader by the way they present themselves, talk about their projects, or how their people work. So getting direct feedback or direct communication with that individual is key. So that's one thing I'm always looking for. Who's around me that I can learn from, and I talk to them, whether it be at a lunch break or we have social hours and we'll talk. Another thing is what resources do I have available to me. So as a reservist, like we have Udemy, and a lot of companies use Udemy for a lot of different training. Before I think it was JRST, but we used to just see what courses are available. I always take free online courses. I don't know how many times everybody on this call has probably been on LinkedIn and they're like, "Hey, here's a free course, check it out." Well, let's see what they have to say. If it's free and go through it, it might take me an hour and I might learn something. And if I didn't, I'll provide some feedback and I'll share it. But just knowing your resources and if take advantage what's available to you.
Yeah, cheap is good, free is better.
Yeah, yeah, great statement.
So looking ahead, is there any emerging technologies you find kind of exciting in the data center and security space that these folks might take advantage of learning now, get ahead of the
Oh
curve?
man. It's tough. It's tough to say, right? Because there's a lot of future things coming on. I would say familiar yourself with current access control systems if you're looking at like access on the security side of the house, right? Definitely looking at a CPP or a PSP certification, and that's through Access. They're kind of like the leading when it comes to security, whether you want to pursue a physical security role or a electrical security role. Either way is going to be great to go with. So that's something I always let people know. And that's a massive community, by the way, when it comes to Access. They host like tons of conventions. You get to meet all the leading industry leaders from equipment to owners to GCs. And then understanding, low voltage. I think low voltage is something, and when I say low voltage, I'm talking about like 1 to 4 inch conduit pathways in a building for cable or for power. So things like that, if that's the route you want to pursue. I think everybody has seen data centers and LinkedIn popping up everywhere. It's a striving market. It's all over the place. And one thing you'll notice, they're random. They'll pop in some random town or, very excluded area. So just be ready, and there is opportunity there. So if that's the role you want to go, feel free to reach me on LinkedIn and I can definitely help out with that process.
So what's a day in your life look like when you show up to work?
Yeah, so my day's great. I think we all say that. I usually show up around 07. I like 07. It's a good time for me to get a cup of coffee in or, get a sit down real quick and kind of go through my emails. Usually starts off with a couple field walks with the general contractor and different trade partners. So I usually deal with a lot of electrical contractors, security integrators, and just kind of see how the progress of the project's going. And then I usually have meetings with my design team. So whether it be like security design, civil design, architectural, landscape, those are like the main cues I go with. And then I have like my key like rotational meetings every day, every week, depending where they sit. And then updating reports. So it's a balance between being in the field and understanding what you're looking at, but also coming back to an office space and then kind of notating the day and what you did and how's the process going. I currently have 2 sites, so I do travel a lot too as well. So coordinating travel between um, from Temple to Idaho has been pretty good. And just to say, it's a lot better than traveling through DTS. So for everybody who's traveled through DTS, that's the hardest part. If you can get past DTS, you can travel in the civilian side. You're perfectly fine. It's not that hard.
I would rather travel the river Styx with a coin than do DTS again.
Oh yeah, I remember I was a DTS approving authority for a time, and I can't tell you I hated going through vouchers and authorizations, and I'm pretty sure some of us have done it. But yeah, if you can't get past DTS, you're good. James, do you have a question?
Hey, I do. Thank you. I appreciate your time today. Hey, I'm very interested in what you do in the physical security aspect. I currently have a security fundamentals professional certification and the physical security certification through Defense Counterintelligence
Mhm.
Security Agency. How does that certification stand up to the field that you're in? Because I think you mentioned, what was it? Access is
Yeah.
the Is that
ASIS, my bad. ASIS. So ASIS. Sorry.
ASI? Sorry,
Yeah. Yeah.
ASIS. Okay. And um, as far as like my expertise, like I'm a security professional by trade, so like the IT side of the house, I'm not very savvy in that. However, as far as regulations for government contracts and secure facilities, classified facilities, stuff like
Yeah.
that, I do have a lot of knowledge and experience in that. So would that be something that could be leveraged with Meta or
Yeah.
that's a
So
lot there. Sorry, go ahead.
no, you're perfectly fine. Uh, I know you mentioned, as a very good physical security expert, do you want to branch over to like the IT side, the cyber side, or do you want to stay physical? Like,
No, I would
where do you
love
want to
to
lean
because I
towards?
know that's I um
We lost you.
Yeah, I think we lost you there.
you got me now?
Yep,
Yep.
got you now.
Okay, sorry. Yeah, I would definitely like to dip my toes over into the IT side to branch out and gain some knowledge and experience in that way to be able to expand
Yeah.
my opportunities. So
So here's my recommendation. Figure out what side of IT applies to your profession when it comes to physical security. So obviously, to me, off the bat comes to access control systems and how do they incorporate. My recommendation would be with the certifications you have, you should be able to qualify for a PSP, which is a physical security professional through ACES. There is a pre-qualifier that not just anybody can get it. You do have to have some experience and some certifications, and there's an approval process. I think that's a great certification, industry worldwide standard recognized that you can easily apply for, study up, take the test, and now you have that in your background. And if you look for a lot of physical security roles when it comes to like global area managers or just directors, PSP is one of the minimum qualifications required for that role or CPP. And then since you're leaning more on the IT side, how does physical security tie in? Well, access control ties into a panel or a rack somewhere in the facility. So a good thing would be to look at different programs like Secure or Software House or Genetec, right? Those are like very common worldwide systems that are used at every facility. So once you understand how everything ties in, that's a really good help right there and kind of covering that baseline.
excellent. Thank you. I appreciate it. And I sent early on, I sent you a connect request, so I may have some more questions later on. But I'll hit you up on LinkedIn if that's all right.
No, that's perfectly fine. And I welcome that for anybody on the call. Feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn. If I don't get to you same day, don't don't think I ignored you. Does take me some time to get through my messages, but I'm here to help and advocate for anybody that needs the support.
My
All
man.
right, excellent. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Hey, Michael, go ahead, sir.
Yeah, Pedro, thanks for being here. One of the questions I've got is um, from what you're seeing within Meta and I'll just say any of the FANGs, um, what are you seeing for the resurgence of um, uh, IT leadership with maybe like not as much deep level certifications, but like coming from like the Navy where like we're leading IT shops,
Yeah.
but I'm not a sys admin, I'm not security plus, but I understand it enough to make sure that I've got the right people in place to get the job done what needs to get done, and I can keep these people on track to getting that done.
Yeah.
Um, where a lot of times uh there's sometimes the push like, well, you need to know everything of what you're asking other people to do. Like, well, that's not really the case. I mean, because you can definitely lead a group of people to get a job done, which there's a reason why I'm leading them because I'm driving the bus. I don't have to know what's happening in each seat.
Yeah.
I just need to understand where we're going and to be able to identify where we're maybe off track.
Correct.
So, do you see that as something that is, I guess, more um, More jobs are opening up with that kind of position.
Oh, 100%. So here's what I'm hearing, right? You know how to get a mission, right, or get an objective, communicate that efficiently to a team and execute that and deliver on some kind of time requirement scale. Right now, you're doing that in a IT format, right, or an S6 shop, or your communication shop. You'll be surprised how well you can translate that to other aspects, whether it'll be like, here's a great example. Early on, I was given a project, has nothing to do with technical project management. It was furniture delivery, right? It was something totally weird. They're like, hey, there's this extra scope gap. Nobody filled it in. Can you take it on? I was like, sure. And because I'm a project manager, right, I was able to kind of see the need, the ask, and deliver. So and in your scenario, I wouldn't focus so much because it sounds like you're a better project manager than you're trying to be a technical SME, which is perfectly fine. There's nothing problem. There's nothing wrong with that. But don't feel like you need Security Plus. Like look at those project manager certifications, and I think those might be more enticing for you than going through a Security Plus course, which is very time consuming and not the funnest test to take. I know I've done Security Plus. I'm still certified, but it does take time to get that going. Now, I will say this though, if you do want to continue pursuing IT side project management, there is a level of some IT certifications you will have to have, just like in the military, right? As you move up in positions, there's a minimum qualification, and that has to do for risk deletion. So by having a personnel leading a project who is certified in these aspects, that lowers the risk of anything happening. So they're in there for a reason. Same when you look at a job application, there is minimum qualifications and preferred qualifications. So you always want to make sure you got the minimum, and there's a reason why they're asking for those preferred. So just kind of keep that in mind. But I think you need to navigate which route you want to go.
All right, and with that, I was going to follow it up with um, how is the area because it goes towards maybe less certified IT folks in the IT world with the idea of the GRC side of that.
Yeah, like I said, as long as you're keeping yourself technically sound on what the industry standards are and what the objectives are, I think most people or most companies are looking for a member who can, have more effective communication skills to deliver versus a technical SME. And that's something that is valued at anywhere you go.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, definitely.
It's great. So this is my last question, unless anybody else has some. If you could go back, let's go back in time, 3 months before your ADOS orders ended. What are you going to whisper in your ear?
Oh man, I think surround myself by individuals who are going through the same thing. Because then having a support system or a support group carries a long way. It really does. And, knowing that you're not the only person struggling, and it's a scary situation. I could think in my scenario, right? I have a family and I'm a single income household. So there's a lot right there to take on. And knowing that there's others that might be in the same or worse situation than you and having that support system. And I think that's something I wish I would have found out early on. And then quickly translating my resume to civilian verbiage. The quicker you can do that, the better you can start executing, applying, and it makes sense. No, it's you'd be surprised how much we use military acronyms in our resumes, and people are not going to understand what that means. So, for sure.
Yes. Yeah, some of them are just hard to ditch because that's the only, in some cases, like I only knew what the acronym was. I didn't know what it meant, It's just like, yeah, it's attached to this. I don't know what the acronym spells out as.
Exactly, right. And yeah, I was doing it the old school way, but now with AI, it's a lot easier and there's
Yeah,
different processes you can do. And I'm pretty sure they teach that when you're transitioning out of the military.
yeah, I showed a buddy of mine who's a Green Beret who's got stuff all the way up and down. I was like, hey, look, all this jump school, this leadership school, translate to civilian, and all of a sudden it makes sense. And it was just like that. It was two different prompts to make it happen.
Yeah.
So it's definitely something to take advantage of. So that's all I got for you. So you have any closing thoughts you'd like to share, Pedro?
Before I get into closing thoughts, I just kind of want to open it up a little bit. I want to make sure everybody has an opportunity to ask a question or if there's something dire out there somebody wants to ask. The chat's going on nonstop. So sorry if you asked a question in the chat and I didn't get to it. We had a whole forum on DTS, so I know to avoid that subject next time.
The devil's travel system.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
saw that one. That was good. I like that.
I like that too. As we've all felt that. Looks like we're good because we tell everybody whenever they want to ask questions, just raise your hand. So, hey, Jamel, go ahead. There we go.
There you go.
Sorry about that. All right. So the question that I've got, right, it involves discipline and conflict. So inside the military, if I have troops underneath me and they are not performing to the standard that they're supposed to,
Yeah.
I can approach them. I can take paperwork to them,
Yeah.
or whatever the case may be. If it ends up getting elevated to the next level, we go from there to the point on paper trails saying, hey, it's time for you to go. At the same time, there's also conflict management in terms of if I've got a airman who just has a complete attitude towards authority, there are authorities invested in me by the UCMJ in which I can execute in order to take care of this individual.
Correct.
And not necessarily talking about screaming, cussing, and all this stuff. But in the civilian sector, how is discipline and conflict management handled? Because I know my little brother who was in and got out, he got a job and he had an issue with a lazy worker. And so how do we navigate that on the other side?
Man, that is a great question. I'm happy you asked it. So no matter where you're at in the military, right? UCMJ follows you wherever you go for all green suiters and civilians in the military. So the law stays the same, the rule stays the same, right? In the civilian sector, you got to know who you're working for, what are your policies and procedures when it comes to corrective action on a, depending what kind of complaint or what's going on. I think you need to educate yourself firstly, like we do as, senior leaders, whether you're enlisted or an officer. What are your lefts and rights? Understand, like, what are you able to do and what is the proper channels? And always seek guidance. Depending what level, like, for example, on the military side, we always had that JAG officer there, like, hey, before I do this, let me run this idea by you because I don't want to get, in trouble later down the road. Well, the same thing applies here on the civilian side. There's always an HR. So no matter what company you work for, there is a process there to, properly discipline or properly remove somebody from their position, depending on the severity of their action. So just educate yourself where you're at, what are the procedures, and move forward. And, you're within your rights. Does that answer your question?
Yes, sir. Appreciate it.
Not too easy. Matt, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Hey, thanks, Pedro. Hey, my question is geared towards, we just spent a lot of time talking about professional certifications, right?
Yeah.
So a lot of us are here because we're transitioning into a new career field. And like, I'm personally in the cyber security career field track. I'm not a cyber professional, right? So why do I need to have a security plus professional certificate before I'm a professional? What is the career track molding mechanism that some of the companies like Meta or other agencies are going to use to help develop people before? I mean, why do we need to have all the experience up front before we have the experience?
So, no, that's a great question, right? And I think a lot of it has to do you know what you're speaking to? For you're speaking cybersecurity right now. Before this role, my pursuit was to be a CISO. I always wanted to be, at the head of company and be able to advise on that. And then for that, I was able to pursue a CISSP and CYSA certification. There is a level of risk when it comes to, and I'm not speaking on Meta, I'm just speaking in general. For example, let's just say there is a cyber leak at a different company, and then there's insurances and stuff like that that come into play that covers, any expenses and data loss and things like that. And the military side, we do this as well too. But like, let's just say like the decision maker in that role is CSSP certified and CYSA certified. So that lowers the risk mitigation. Well, that might also come into like from a bigger picture, a deductible cost from the insurance company that will cover that aspect of data loss or is willing to, insurance your company and so on and so forth. So a lot of the times those certifications are needed from a higher business level standpoint to be able to ensure that scope of work to make sure, if there is a leak, these are the procedures we have in place or so on and so forth. But keep in mind, there is certifications that are very SME oriented. And there's some certifications that are very broad. Like CISSP is one that covers a large aspect, but they only go in about an inch deep. You just have to, understand the lingo and the language and, from a program manager standpoint. So I still think that they're important to have, just know which ones fit what you're pursuing. It's, for example, in like cybersecurity.
No, I appreciate that. I guess my question is more geared towards like, is there any initiative to try and grow these capabilities from within before you force folks to go out and spend hundreds of dollars on, certifications that they are familiar with the terminology for, they're studied for the test for, but they don't necessarily have any practical experience with.
Yeah, so the ones I always tell people is like if it's available to you while you're in, get it, right? Because if you don't need it down the road, you're not going to need it. You'll see a lot of high business professionals. Like I go through LinkedIn account to look at different people sometimes to see how they contribute, and a lot of their certifications are expired. They're no longer valid, but they had them at some point because they needed them. So just because it might be what you need to get your step in, that's what my recommendation would be. If that's what's stopping you from getting into what your role wants to be, just get it done. And if you don't need it down the road or it's not required, you don't have to renew your certification. Or you can, or your certs do change down the road. But it depends on where you want to go and what are the needs for that role.
No, I really appreciate it, especially the first part of your answer about the higher level business aspect of insurance and stuff.
Yeah, that
That's
comes
something
with
nobody ever tells you. So,
yeah.
thank
So
you.
if you ever decide to pursue CISSP through ICS Squared is the certification company, they talk about that. So those are some of the risk management tools that you have to, use when it comes to that business level. So yeah, there's always a higher reason, higher level view that sometimes from the end user we don't understand. But yeah, it's good. Good. I'm happy you had that question.
Last one. Going. Awesome. Pedro. Pedro, has been fabulous having you here. I just watching the chats and seeing everybody talk about it and the questions you answered, dude, you killed it.
Oh,
Thanks.
perfect.
Thanks a ton for coming on, brother. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. Glad to be here. Again, if
Yeah,
anybody wants to reach out, send an invite on LinkedIn, and then we can always have another meeting one-on-one if need be.
yeah. I dropped your link in there several times, so nobody's got an excuse not to connect with you, man. You'll get several more after this, I guarantee.
Hey, Ernest, I appreciate the invite. Keep doing great things. This is awesome for veterans, and I hope more people get to chime in and kind of listen. And I'm definitely going to chime in when I can to kind of listen from other people. So thank you again.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you just helped 400 people here in some fashion, in some way. So you're killing